Of course, we have all these people out in love streaming land. Hello. And hello to all of you here today. It's such a pleasure and an honor to be here. This is my first time at the Unity of Verde Valley. And I've always wanted to come here. And it's funny how Spirit just takes you on this little detour, right? I could have come here years ago, but it just wasn't the right time. Now is the right time. And it's right because I have friends that live in the area. I was able to connect with some just great, beautiful friends of mine from high school, able to experience this beautiful town of Cottonwood and eat some really good food and, go explore a little bit, and then come here and deliver this message to this wonderful, smiling, loving, fun congregation. So we're going to have a great time today. So what I'd like to do before I begin my message is just bring us down a little bit. Great song, Ken. Thank you so much. And just take us back down just a little bit and just get us in preparation for this message today. So I invite you to just kind of connect with that breath, sort of just kind of slow it down just a little bit. If the heart rate's going, just kind of take it down a little bit. Close your eyes if you wish. Get yourself kind of comfortable. If you were up dancing, just feel the blood circulating throughout your body, right? This energy we've created in this room. Let's just sit for a moment and feel that energy. Take a deep breath in. Take a deep, holy breath. Take a deep breath all the way down to your diaphragm. And let it out. This is a safe place. This is a sacred place. And this is a holy place. The Christ Spirit is alive and well in this room. And with each breath, that prana, that spiritual wind, that energy, the breath of God goes into you. Your body becomes more and more enlivened. Whatever you've come with before today in your heart or in your mind, your thoughts, simply lay those aside right now. We're going to empty the room, so to speak. Just let them go. You can always pick them up later. Can always come back to them. Now we just consecrate ourselves as vessels to receive the discernment of whatever the message is, however it comes to us in our own heart, in our own mind. Breathing in, we just acknowledge life in our bodies, the cells in each and every pice of our body, the organs and systems that drive the body, our lungs, our heart, our nervous system, our elimination system, and that brain of ours, that wonderful supercomputer that conducts everything, gives us the ability to think. We give thanks for all of that, and we connect with that life itself. And we take a moment and connect with each other in this room. We connect with the humanity that is represented right here, right now. Acknowledging that Spirit of God, that Christ presence within each and every person here, that perfect creation that we all are. In perfect wholeness, we see each other in our mind's eye. And in this moment, we take and visualize the community of Cottonwood in wholeness. We see discomfort and discord move and transform into the greater presence of love. And we move this vision out of Cottonwood into the greater community, into the state, into the nation, and into our world. And dare I say, maybe interplanets. So let's take a moment in this expansion, this unlimited expansion of spirit now, and contemplate this life now in the silence, in silence. I live freely. I live wholly. I live joyously, and I live eternally. Say that once in the silence to yourself. I live freely. I live wholly. I live joyously, and I live eternally. Now we just let that sink in, and we begin to bring ourselves out of this contemplative time, still connected with our breath, letting that message just sit with us. So I invite you now to open your eyes if you so feel called. Wiggle your toes a little bit, just kind of come back into this present moment with each other, refreshed, rejuvenated, relaxed, and at peace. So I would like to begin our talk today with a quote from Myrtle Fillmore. Is everybody here familiar with who Myrtle Fillmore is? Myrtle Fillmore is our co-founder of Unity, right? She and her husband, Charles, began this whole process with a simple prayer. So the quote from Myrtle is, someone says to Myrtle, "What shall I talk about?" he asked. And Myrtle replies, "Talk about life. Life." So I would like you to file that quote away in the back of your subconscious for a few minutes while we progress through this idea of life, what life is, and how we can experience it to a greater degree. So I'd like to begin with a question. Have you ever heard the expression, get a life? Right? I heard it a lot as a teenager. My old man would say, "You need to get a life. Get a life, kid," right? Growing my hair long, listen to rock and roll music. Kind of no direction, And he would say that, and it didn't have the very most positive tone to it. Get a life. Or you'd hear people on the street, "Get a life, man." Some of your friends would say that. So what it really means is you're not living up to your full potential. That's the more positive way to think about it, but it's not the way it always comes out. Now, to whose standards we should live up to is a whole nother question. So what if we reframe the question as claim your life or claim a life? Does that have a little different feeling to it? Claim a life. Claim your life. That life, claim that life, which is your highest and best. That life which you live vibrantly and abundantly and expressing your true purpose. Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, the co-founders of Unity, mastered the art of living in all aspects of their life. And what we're going to do today is look at this concept of life basically through the philosophy and lives of Charles and Myrtle. They were a phenomenal couple, and they had one of the most advanced prayer consciousnesses out of anybody, I believe, in the modern century. In the revealing world, Charles Fillmore defines life as that expression of being which manifests as animation, activity, vigor. Life is the energy that propels all forms to action. So we already have life, right? We had the first unity principle up there, right? God is present everywhere and all good. And the second principle to that is God is within us as the Christ. We have that seed of creation in us all the time, anytime. So the question then becomes, we already know we have that life in us, right? We believe that God is indwelling in us. We don't believe that we have to ask somebody up on a cloud somewhere to make our lives better or to fulfill our desire. No, all we have to do is claim that. So how can we create a consciousness to effectively shape and transform our life? So we're going to talk about life as an acronym. And that is LIFE. And it stands for love, imagination, faith, and fellowship. Enthusiasm, right? We have no lack of that here today. And we're going to explore it again in the context of Charles and Myrtle's life and ministry. So let's begin with the first one. You guys ready to begin this? Yeah, right? Amen. Let's start with love. So in Matthew chapter 22, verses 37 through 39, Jesus, who we view as our master teacher and our way shower, he's expanding a passage and an idea of the Old Testament. And he says, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the greatest and the first commandment." That's recognizing that first affirmation we had up there, right? And so what I view this process of these verses as is a process of both involution and evolution, meaning it's a taking in, it starts from the inside, and it's a releasing and a giving out. And basically, it's a fancy term for saying it begins as an inside job. All our growth and transformation starts here. It starts here, inside of us. And then once we begin to love ourselves, to love all those aspects of ourselves, our bodies, our hearts, our minds, our thoughts, we can then begin to love others. And so with that, he goes into the second part of this verse. And it goes like this: "You shall love your neighbor as yourself," right? That's a tough one sometimes. I mean, physically, you have neighbors that play their music too loud, or their dog does something on your lawn or whatever. But neighbors in this case isn't just a physical neighbor. Neighbors are those thoughts, those shadow aspects of ourselves, those unlikable, those traits that aren't so good about us, right? The jealousy, or we're feeling anger, or things like that. When Jesus is saying, love your neighbor as yourself, he's saying, bring these things in, explore them, look at them, heal them, not just put them off in some box and saying, well, I'm angry, but I'm just not going to be angry for now, and I'll just conduct myself and do what I have to do. No, bring them out, bring them to the table. The 23rd Psalm says, you should bring your, excuse me, prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. But your enemies in this case aren't your enemies. They're more like your frenemies. So Charles and Myrtle, first and foremost, had a deep abiding love for God. And they practiced this daily. And it's a practice. It isn't something we just do, once and we're done. This is an ongoing thing. They loved their bodies. In fact, they loved them so much, they blessed each and every cell, just like we did in meditation. They blessed each and every organ, no matter what the appearance of it was. This is the first cause to healing, right? Recognizing your perfect pattern and blessing what you have. It's Myrtle. They blessed every appendage and organ, and they also affirmed health and vitality as their divine inheritance. In fact, wasn't it Myrtle Fillmore, correct me if I'm wrong, that said, I am a child of God, and therefore I don't inherit sickness. My natural birthright is health. They affirmed and they demonstrated this in a deep, abiding love of Christ in all their relationships, all their activities, and all of their business affairs. They viewed it as a whole piece. It wasn't just compartmentalized and saying this part of our lives we're going to acknowledge Christ, and we're going to acknowledge spirit and healing. No, it encompassed all of their lives. They gave of their time and they gave of their treasure to further work the Spirit through their ministry. And their work was truly, truly a labor of love. It included their family, their friends, as well as many complete strangers. And the ones that were gravitated towards the Fillmores, they prospered with opportunities to serve and grow. They genuinely showed a deep and abiding love for humanity. And despite the race, creed, color, origin, status in life, they loved everybody. So let's take a moment and we're going to affirm love. In the affirmation, I invite you to close your eyes for just a second. And we're just going to affirm silently together. In this life, I love audaciously, inclusively, and completely. In this life, I love audaciously, inclusively, and completely. Just let that sink for a second. The next part of our acronym of life is imagination. And that's a fun one, right? Imagination. And I can tell there's a lot of imagination walking around this building and seeing the colors and all the stuff around here. I can tell there's a lot of folks with imagination that are using that here in this congregation. And I view imagination as a ladder. It's a ladder which enables us to scale the wall of impossibility. Everything was impossible at one time, right? And then someone had a great idea and the imagination, and then got people together to help see that idea through, right? So what we can ask ourselves when we're considering imagination is, what is the highest good? What is the highest possible good I can imagine in my life? And this isn't the place to think small. No, my mother, she saves a lot of things, like drawings I made as a kid. And I have these drawings I made, and I made this character, this creation called Super Kenny. And I made myself a superhero. And I had these pictures of me shooting lightning bolts out of my eyes, and I could fly and I could leap great distances. Kind of like Superman, but I wasn't the same as Superman. I was better. I was better than Superman, Super Kenny. And that was my imagination went to. I wasn't thinking small, going, well, I think I'll just take the power of X-ray vision and, this and that. No, I wanted it all. I wanted the coolest powers. So think big, imagine big. And the second thing we can ask ourselves is, what do we want our life to look like? What would I like my life to look like? What would I vision for the perfect life? What would it look like? I view imagination also as the debit card of our account that is filled with divine ideas. And we look at divine ideas, all these ideas as coin of the invisible realm. They're there. They're there for us to take and use and manifest to not only improve our lives, but the lives of others. In Fillmore's mind, they imagine themselves as whole, hearty, and healthy, right? This vision of health that they possessed, coupled with the thoughts and the energized action of spirit, enabled Myrtle to cast off tuberculosis, right? And Charles, he was able to use a withered and unusable leg. His leg was shorter than the other. He couldn't walk very well, but by the time he grew into an older man, he was walking and doing things with it that the doctor said he could never do before. That vision, that imagination, seeing things for what they really are. They imagined a newer, larger facility to accommodate their work. From this vision, the Tracy Street, the beautiful building on Tracy Street where they ran Unity, the printing and everything else was manifested. And after that, Unity Village. How many people have been to the village here? I would highly recommend it if you ever get the chance to travel there to take it. It's a beautiful and wonderful place. Gorgeous. Yeah, it's in Lee's Summit, Missouri. It's the headquarters of Unity is located there. Beautiful place. So they imagined a newer, larger facility to accommodate their work. One of the things I've been reading lately is about the work they've been doing on Disneyland in Disney World. And they have this, they're taking like the older rides and attractions, and they're just completely tearing them out. And they have this group of people called the Imagineers. And these Imagineers, what they do is they take and they design, and based on movies and these ideas that the other idea people have, they have this whole group of people, and they not only create out of these ideas, but they also start shaping the new attractions and the new rides, these new lands that come out. And we're all Imagineers to a degree. We have that same power. When you see a Disneyland they're shaping, we can shape our lives the same way. with that power of imagination, we can vision it and we can imagine it so. So with this power of imagination, let's take a moment and affirm this power, okay? I invite you to close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath and just let this affirmation sink in. In this life, I imagine the best possible outcome and my highest good, despite the appearance in any circumstance. And let that sink in for just a moment. And let's come back out. And now we're going to explore the land in that spirit of Disneyland, the land of faith and fellowship. When we have an unyielding faith and spirit and willingly exercise in the action and the guidance received, we enter into a true fellowship with the divine. This is what Charles and Fillmore were able to do on a daily basis and consistently. The Fillmores were a living illustration of faith and action, so much so that they established a covenant together. You want to hear what it is? This is the covenant that Charles and Myrtle established when they were starting their ministry. In pure faith, we, Charles Fillmore and Myrtle Fillmore, husband and wife, hereby dedicate ourselves, our time, and our money, all we have, and all that we expect to have, to the Spirit of truth, and through it, to the Society of Silent Unity. It being understood and agreed that said Spirit of truth shall render to us an equivalent for this dedication in peace of mind, health of body, wisdom, understanding, love, life, and abundant supply of all things necessary to meet every want without our making any of these the object of our existence. In the presence of the conscious mind of Jesus Christ, 7th day of December, 1892. Whew. Wow. How many of us have a covenant like that we live to every single day in our spiritual practice? I don't, and I'm a minister. But that is the model that we can aspire to, right? I mean, to live that faith and fellowship. And they listened to only one voice. They didn't listen to any of the doubters, the naysayers, the critics, and a lot of these were with their own circle of people, mind you, but they listened to that small whisper of spirit consistently. They had the faith. They had the faith to take immediate action on the guidance which they received. Immediate action. And they were rewarded with blessings in most all of their endeavors. And when they didn't see the blessing right away, they still visualized and affirmed a blessing out of that, right? God's good is present everywhere. We don't always see it. It's not always right in front of our eyes, but when we see that undercurrent of good that we can take that faith in, we know something, it's this or something better. They had faith in their fellow man and went to great lengths to fellowship with all. James DeLette Freeman, a noted Unity luminary and author, had this to say: to the Fillmores, life was a joyous and wonderful experience. They were not content merely to make their own life wonderful. They tried to live so that some of their wonder spilled over into the lives that touched their own. I want to read that again. They tried to live so that some of their wonder spilled over into the lives that touched their own. Wow, what a powerful statement. And I look at this word wonder because we hear in the Bible a lot of the fear of God or fear God. And it sounds so scary, right? But in the unity, the way we think about it in metaphysics, fear is another word for awe and wonder, right? Of being in awe like a child. When you look at something that happens in your life, you're saying, how did that happen? Wow, that is the coolest thing ever. Thank you. Thank you, Spirit, for bringing that to me. So it's another way of looking and replacing that word of fear, wonder. So let's take a moment and affirm this power of faith and fellowship. We close our eyes for a moment, if you wish, and we affirm, in this life, I put my faith in the Christ presence, which I have an ongoing fellowship with. I recognize the Christ in myself and all persons and have fellowship with all from this viewpoint. So, are we ready for the last one? Yeah? The E? Anybody want to take a guess what it is? Okay, all right. Anybody else? Anybody else have a guess of what E is? Oh man, what a group! Ding, 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 ding. Ken, what do we have for him? And how appropriate was you get divine consciousness, you get eternal consciousness, right? Oh gosh. How appropriate was our daily word today, right? Passion. Enthusiasm is another word for passion, or one of, as Charles Fillmore said, zeal, passion, zeal. There's a life coach named Tony Robbins. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. And one of his catchphrases for years was live with passion, right? Live with passion. It was Charles Fillmore that said this famous quote. And this is my favorite quote from Charles Fillmore. I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm, and I spring forth with a mighty faith to do the things that ought to be done by me. How many of you can say that every single morning when you wake up, right? Not me. I get rolling out of bed and my aches and my pains, and I haven't had my coffee yet. And I'm like, I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm. Oh, good question. I was just getting to that. Perfect. You guys are a bright group, and I know you guys out there in love streaming land are saying the same things. He was 94 years old. 94. That's insane. And one of the things that always touched me about Unity, when I first came in attending churches regularly, Unity over 10 years ago, is that when I talk to people, and I say people of advanced age, elderly, I say that with respect, but what I noticed was the youth. When I looked into their eyes, they were so young. We had a man at our old church named Joe. He was 90 years old and still up on ladders, fixing stuff and doing stuff and wiring and all this stuff. We had another lady that would take the doors off, these big church doors, and she would revarnish them and do everything. And others that were dancing. We would hold dances at our church and they'd be up cutting the rug. And I was just amazed because I looked in their eyes and their eyes were always dancing. And I'm like, I want that. I want what they have. You know, they might have had their ailments. They might have walked in with walkers and canes, but I saw their spirit for what it was. And it didn't matter because in their eyes, they were dancing. They were alive. They were life. So in Charles Fillmore's case, it was the enthusiasm for his work that gave him the vigor to outwork young men more than several decades his junior. And honestly, in my 20s, I was in pretty good shape. I worked construction and all that, played sports and worked out. I don't think I could have kept up with Charles Fillmore. Imagine what it would be like working in an office with that guy. He was all over the place, a dynamo, right? His staff must have been in really good shape too. So I think about it sometimes and I think, wow, what if I would have cultivated that consistent mindset of enthusiasm in my early 20s? What would that have looked like? I would have had a lot more drive and energy because it starts here in the mind. It's all in the mind. And I've come to know now, I'll turn 55 this year, the double nickels. I'm rocking the senior discounts now, so join that. But I've come to know that enthusiasm drives the mundane to the miraculous. I'm going to say that again. Enthusiasm drives the mundane to the miraculous. So there's a 17th century priest named Brother Lawrence. I don't know if any of you have read the Maxims of Brother Lawrence. And he was a monk that lived with this conviction that all we do, whether work, whether play, whether doing menial chores, whatever we do, is done in prayer, as a prayer, for the glory of God and God alone. We live our life as a prayer. And when I read through this, I was just amazed and thinking about it because at the time I was working construction, I was doing these horrible. I was working in sewer. I did installed sewer lines, and I was down in these holes, and they were smelly and they were icky. And I'm reading Brother Lawrence. I'm like, yes, thank you, God. Thank you for this lovely sewer I'm working in. Thank you for this smell, because you know what? When I got my paycheck at the end of the week, it was pretty good. It was prosperity at work. And when I wrote my first tithing check to the church out of that, I was so happy. I was giddily dancing around. So I haven't mastered that yet. But imagine if we did, and just doing simple household chores. What if we blessed the chores that we hated doing? God, I love cleaning this toilet. This is the best thing ever. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It means I have a home, right? I have a home, and I have a place and a place to be. So thank you. I have a dog named Kenai. She's a black, she's part border collie and part blue heeler. And she has this thing down, because at 6 a.m. every morning, she sizzles with zeal. And she springs forth with a mighty zest and a mighty faith. And you know what? Her enthusiasm is rewarded. Oh, yes. Because my wife and I both get out of bed. We get her on the couch. We give her her loves. We play with her a little bit. And then we feed her. She gets her cookie. She throws this Kong at me, and I put a cookie in it. That's what I'm supposed to do. And then we take her out on a joyous excursion. Take her out to the park where she loves to go. And it's contagious, because after this walk, we go up into the hills and do this great hike. We're quickened with the enthusiasm to start our day. Enthusiasm. Children and animals can be the best teachers on this. Don't you agree? Absolutely. So let's take a moment and affirm enthusiasm. In this life, I sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm, and I spring forth with a mighty faith to do the things that ought to be done by me. I spring forth with a mighty faith. So what I would like to do is, remember that quote, that statement I had you guys file away in your subconscious earlier in the talk? I'd like to pull out the drawer and bring that back out. So if you remember it, pull it out, bring it back out. And I'm going to show you where this fits in our little puzzle of life here. So there's a story, a new center leader. This is a story with Myrtle Fillmore, and they were establishing a center in Unity early on. And a new center leader was asked to conduct a funeral service. Never having conducted one, he came to Myrtle Fillmore for advice. She told him, just because it's a funeral, you don't have to talk about death, do you? And the man looked at Myrtle incredulously and said, well, if I don't talk about death, what am I supposed to talk about? He asked. And she looked at him with those dancing Myrtle eyes that I could just imagine she had when she talked to somebody. And she said, talk about life. Talk about life. Life. That's how Jesus, our way sure, was able to heal the sick. That's how those accounts of the Bible of him raising the dead, whether it's figuratively or it really happened, he spoke life into the situation. What about our situations in life? What about that relationship you don't think is able to be repaired, that maybe needs some forgiveness? Does it keep going on as the same broken record playing over and over again? Oh, God, we'll never heal our rift. You know, this is just, it's hopeless. We'll never do it. Or do we speak the words in life in it? I see the Christ in this person, and I see the life in the situation. I affirm the good that's working in the situation. Speak life, think life, be life. Years ago, there was a popular slogan, and I don't recall exactly where it came from or what it was for. But for our purposes, in light of Myrtle Fillmore's reply to the young man, it works. Choose life. Choose life. Choose life in every circumstance, in every waking moment. Choose life. Love, imagination, faith, and fellowship. And most importantly, what? What? Enthusiasm, right? No lack of that in this building. So to conclude, this idea of life, especially enthusiasm, I have a little number I've worked out, and this is either going to go really good or it's going to go horribly south. And if it goes horribly south, I'm going to duck right behind this lectern because I see projectiles that can be thrown. So here it goes. I wrote this song just for y'all, okay? L is for the way I love, complete. I is my imagination free. F, I live in fellow and faithfully. E, I live enthusiastically. L is for the way I love, complete. I is my imagination free. F, I live in fellowship faithfully. E, I live enthusiastically. I live life. I don't know if I'm going to get the gold ticket for that, but I didn't have to duck behind the lectern. So hopefully y'all didn't turn off your volume up there. Oh, goodness. So we covered so many things about life, right? Talking about life, living life, experiencing life. So let's take this a moment in prayer to close this out. And we just acknowledge that spirit of love, that spirit of imagination, that spirit of faith and fellowship, and that spirit of enthusiasm. And in that spirit, we choose life. And from this moment forward, we live freely, we live wholly, we live joyously, and we live eternally. Thank you, God. Thank you. Thank you, Spirit. Amen. Amen. Namaste.